Welcome to Ask a Youth Pastor. I'm Ron Hudson.
I'm Mike Beachy.
And I'm Larry Georgiana.
We're so glad that you joined us today. We're going to be talking about LOL and LMAO. And
what does that mean? What's that mean?
It means laughing my keister off, except in the bad word. Yes.
Oh, it means something different?
And there's other ones, like F off, where they say EFF and type it out, and so we see this stuff on Facebook and on Twitter, and even Christians use it because it's not technically the word, And you know what? Even when people use LOL, I don't think they're laughing out loud.
No.
It is dishonest.
I usually do smiley winky face.
Yes.
Like if I'm not really laughing. If I say LOL, I'm really laughing.
We won't discuss the cheese nature.
I'm
involved in that as grown men.
I am such a nerd. For that. My Twitter friends and we came up with CHOL, CHOL, which is chuckling out loud, because it's more appropriate. Because you were like,
it's a little more honest.
Yes, it's a little more honest.
Okay.
So, but no, we're not going to talk about that as much as living a double life, or saying one thing and then justifying it and being one thing at church and one thing at school.
Kind of like a chameleon.
And things like Twitter and Facebook kind of bring this out, and you can tell the kids who don't want you to be their friend on Facebook, so they're limited profile,
hide this,
or don't be my Twitter friend because
block
I don't want you to see what's going on in my life, and that's not cool. It's not cool.
No. I think what it comes down to sometimes is feeling as though we have to be someone, especially people who grow up in church. They almost feel as though they have to fit to this certain profile or this certain person.
Mold.
And fit a mold, exactly. And I think that it comes down to wanting to be yourself, and I think recognizing that and being that person in the church and being that person in your regular life, it's going to come across as more, dare I use the word, authentic to everyone that we come across. You know what I mean? And I think that that plays a bigger role in being who you are in Christ and getting the people to understand.
I think, just speaking from the youth pastor perspective, thinking about it and looking back to when I was a teenager in my youth group, I know, in the present, as a youth pastor, trying to understand where a student or teen is in their walk. And you come to youth group and you have this face on. So you want to teach that person at that level that they are supposedly living. Yeah. You want to try to go a little bit deeper because you assume because they're conforming to a certain way in the youth group that from a maturity level that's where they are. Yeah. And thus your expectations for them might even be different or higher. When all the while, that's not where they really are. And whenever they're somewhere else, and maybe in school or out with certain friends,
I totally relate with that.
They're totally different.
Because when I was growing up, I was the pastor's kid, the missionary kid. Every church I go to, I'm supposed to be the good teenager, and people would expect something out of me that, in my personal life and in my heart, I thought, man, I'm just not at that level yet. I'm not ready for that. I'm not, and God grew me through that, and I think He's used those things in my life to push me and to stretch me and grow me. But maybe this is controversial, but I would almost rather someone cuss in front of me than just pretend, and then pretend like they're a Christian around me, and then cuss around their friends later, because at least they're being real.
Yeah.
I would almost rather, and we've had kids that came in, and they cuss, and I say, please don't cuss in church and stuff. I don't,
at least while you're here, in front of the group.
For the sake of the group, and I don't want them to, and I don't want to use that language in my life, and but at least they're being authentic. At least I know this kid's saying what he means. This kid is being real with me. Yeah. I can work with that. What do you want to know about God? And we can have an honest dialogue.
It helps us understand where the person is in their journey.
Sure.
Don't act like you're somewhere in the journey if you're really not. Going back to whenever I was in my youth ministry, when I was in high school, I didn't pretend that I was somewhere in the journey that I wasn't. I didn't act one way in the church, and then outside of the church, people knew that I was, a sinner.
Why? Why did you feel like you could do that?
Well, you know what? It was just that whenever I went there, I had made the decision that I was not going to be a hypocrite. That's all it was. It wasn't, you know, it wasn't anything righteous or really noble in me, but it was just like, okay, if I'm going to be, you know, outside and on the soccer field or the baseball field and cursing and doing some of the things that I did, I wasn't going to show up at youth group and act like I had all the answers.
So you
and
basically,
I knew who God was.
You got that feeling, if I had to guess, I'm going to say you gathered that feeling because you saw it. You saw someone feeling that, and you decided, I am not going to be
hypocrite?
that. You saw the hypocritical Christians,
sure,
and they're very obvious.
So
they're very transparent.
Why do we feel like we have to be that way in church? Like, are we afraid of getting yelled at by our mom and dad or by our youth pastor, and like all this shame is going to come? Oh my goodness, they said something.
I think it's just the shame that goes along with it, the guilt.
Where I can get away with it with my friends, you know.
And I mean, looking at it from our perspective, you know, when the kids come, the church has to be a place where youth, adults can come. They're not perfect. They're not fitting this perfect mold of the Christian, and we don't really expect that.
No.
And maybe, you know, we don't communicate that well enough maybe to the group. I want someone to be genuine. I want them to be authentic. Where they are in the journey. Share with me your doubts.
Yeah.
Share with me your objections to the faith. I'm great with that. I have no problem with that. You know, but at the same time, we're also not proposing that anyone should come to youth group and act in a way that takes away, you know, at the same time from what we're trying to do.
So to kind of bottom line it, when it comes to what we post on Facebook and Twitter and YouTube and what we say with our friends around, we need to be authentic.
Yeah.
And our not saying something or not posting something because we're a Christian, that should come out of an authentic relationship with Christ, that we have this relationship with him, and it would offend him if we posted that, or I genuinely don't desire to post that because I have this relationship with Christ.
So you started off the beginning with, you know, some of those abbreviations and some of those little things. So I guess really what it comes down to is, you know, as a believer, someone who's trying to follow Christ, you know, when we look at the root of it, when we look at the motivation behind doing it, like, you know, at the end of the day, we're like, what is it? Is it any different?
What's our heart? What are we saying with our heart?
Is it any different? If you put, you know, LM, whatever it is,
LMAO,
FAO, like, okay. Like, is there really a difference in abbreviating something that what we're really speaking?
Right.
Does that make sense?
God hears our heart, and he says that we're not defiled by what comes into our mouth, but what comes out. And I think that's kind of just the things that we type is the same as what that comes out of our mouth.
I would agree. All right. Well, thank you so much for tuning in to another episode of Ask a Youth Pastor. If you have more questions, just leave them in the comments. Anything you want to ask, just throw it out there, and we'll try to tackle it. And thank you so much for watching.